We're back with another great recipe on the Hasty Bake. Today we're cooking pork belly. Now most people, when they think of pork belly, think of bacon, or maybe in recent years, pork belly burn-ins, which are delicious, and we have a great root beer marinated pork belly burn-in recipe that you can check out. But today, we're cooking pork belly on the grill, smoking it, slicing it, grilling it off again. Let's get started. I have a big piece of fresh pork belly that I got from my friends up at Sausage Brothers in Skytook, Oklahoma. This is super clean, beautiful looking pork belly, wonderful color. The skin's been removed, which makes it way easier for the backyard pitmaster because removing pork belly skin is kind of a pain in the butt. We're going to be seasoning this today with two seasonings that are going to go really well with an Asian infused theme that we're going to be working with on the grill. One of them is going to be DB180 Spicy Garlic. The other one is going to be Heath Ryle Simple Citrus. This pork belly is so fatty we don't have to really add a lot of oil. The seasoning is just going to stick. Since that skin is removed, both sides are going to be able to yield us some bark. Come in with that spicy garlic. Now you can use whatever seasoning you like, maybe throw on some fresh cracked black pepper, one of your favorite barbecue seasonings. You don't have to do Asian inspired at all. That's just what we decided to do. Today we're using the Hasty Bake Gourmet Pro. This model was released in 2021. It's one of my favorite models we have, and I'll show you why. That right there. So smooth, so easy to get to everything. You can hold so much inside of this thing. It's got this upper warming rack that's going to be perfect for the pork belly we're cooking today. We're going to go ahead and get it lighted. I'm going to show you how to set it up. First thing we got to do is obviously put some charcoal in it. We're going to open up the full width side door, slide out the ash pan that catches all that ash and makes clean out so easy. Pull out that firebox and dump away. I like to fill my firebox about halfway all the way over to one side so I have two zone cooking. Compress all that charcoal so it doesn't have a lot of oxygen where it can run away on you. We're going to slide the firebox back in. Going to take our Hasty Bake lighter gel, put it right underneath that charcoal. Going to turn this whole grill into a charcoal chimney. Light it up. Slide it back underneath. Now the last step is we're going to take that heat shield, which we store underneath in the compartment on the grill, put it right over the top of the charcoal. Close the door. And open the vent. That's it. Now we're drafting air through the vent. It's coming out through the hood. We're going to wait for this charcoal to get nice and warm. I'm looking for about 2 fist size full chunks of coal that are going to be lit. We'll shut it down, balance out all my vents. I'm looking for about 300 degrees today. Now we want to make sure that firebox is dropped all the way down to smoke to give us the most amount of room between the fire and the pork belly so we can catch all that wonderful smoke and not worry about searing it too hot. We're back with our pork belly. I'm just going to put this thing fat side down on the very top rack. I want to let this thing start getting some color. We got some charcoal in there. I'm going to throw some pecan wooding just to get a little extra smoke on it. This thing's going to be beautiful. I'm placing it right over the top of the heat shield because that's actually the coolest spot. The heat comes out of the heat shield and blasts this side with heat while this side stays a lot cooler. Coming in with that pecan wood, we're going to throw it right underneath the heat shield. Now to gather heat, we're looking for 300 degrees. We're back, we're gonna check this pork belly. Now originally I said I'm shooting for 170 degrees, but when I checked it at 170, I really didn't like the color. I wanted a little bit more on it. So we kind of let it coast a little bit further. Pork belly's gonna start falling apart once you kind of cross over that 200 mark. So we got a little bit of room to play. We're gonna check it right now, check out the color that it's got. If the color is good, we're gonna pull it and let it rest, because remember, we're gonna grill it off in a few. We're gonna use it for a really cool recipe. Right now it's temping in the thick spot, about 178, 180. We get into some of the thinner spots and we're kind of pushing 190. It's about where I want it to be. So we're gonna go ahead and pull it off. I'm gonna let it rest. We're gonna mix up a marinade that we're gonna glaze this thing with when we put it back on the grill so everything kind of caramelizes on it. I'm gonna mix up kind of a marinade glaze sauce that we're gonna use on this pork belly. I'm gonna slice it into thick pieces before we grill it, and we're gonna glaze this sauce all over both sides of it so it caramelizes. It gets it up to that internal temperature where it really wants to kind of start breaking apart. Then we're gonna dish it up. So I'm gonna start off with some soy sauce. This is not exact measurements. Gonna add probably about the same amount of teriyaki. Gonna go ahead and throw in some stir-in paste garlic. You can chop fresh garlic if you want, but this paste really does a good job of disintegrating, and it kind of infiltrates all those little nooks and crannies you want to get in on that pork belly. We're gonna throw in some ground ginger. Not a lot, but enough. Ginger's got a good bite to it. It's going to kind of keep this whole thing fresh. Then we're going to throw in some honey. This is really what's going to create the glaze with the liquids that we have in here. It's going to make it stick to the pork belly. Now I'm going to stir this up until it's a glaze-like consistency. If you need to add more to it, more honey, something like that to make it a little bit thicker, you can. It doesn't have to be really, really thick and sticky, but it's got to be enough that you're going to get all those flavors to stick to the meat. We're going to take this marinade, we're going to put this in the refrigerator to let everything kind of come together. Our pork belly is now cooled down. Now it's not cold by any means, but it's definitely cool enough that we can touch it. Now remember, this isn't 100% of the way cooked. If we were cooking this just to eat it right off the bat and not grill it, you'd want to take it closer to 200 degrees. We pulled this around closer to 190 because we're going to grill it off, but we want to get all that glaze on there first. Beautiful color on this, absolutely beautiful color. So we want to go ahead and slice it. We sliced it into thick slices, so we're going for about between 1/4 and 1/2 inch thick, because you want it to hold up when you grill them. Oh my goodness, that looks good. I could eat that right now. Try to get them as uniform as possible, because when you do go to grill them, you want them to cook as even as possible. You also want to make sure you're slicing this against the grain. You don't want to have any long lines running through it. You want the lines to be going up and down, not side to side, because when you slice it against the grain, it's going to have a nice clean bite as opposed to pulling. You can see you got that beautiful penetration. It's nice and tender, which when that pork belly was raw, it wouldn't have had this give to it. So it's getting close to being done, but it's not fall apart yet, which is perfect. Now to make these easier to grill, I'm going to take these real long pieces that we have right here. We're just going to cut them in half. So you have some shorter pieces that you're dealing with. It's going to be a lot easier to handle on the grill. In order to glaze these evenly, I'm going to go ahead and lay them on the bottom of the pan flat like this. We'll glaze one side, then we'll flip them and glaze the other. And then we'll probably continue to glaze them when they're on the grill. Probably just start to pour a little bit here. Brush it on. Because this glaze has honey in it, it's going to want to burn if you leave it on the grill too long. So you want kind of a hot fast rather than a low and slow cook on this. Now because this pork was already cooked well past food safe, we can continue to use this glaze all the way through the cook. Whereas if you had a marinade that you were putting raw meat in, you couldn't reuse it again. But all this pork was cooked well past food safe, so you're not marinating raw pork anymore, you're marinating cooked pork. So this glaze is going to be great. So we'll put this on the grill and I can use all the liquid that's in the bottom of the pan to continue to glaze the pork belly. One of the beautiful things about a Hasty Bake is you can flip the temperature on a dime. So I just smoked this pork belly at like 300 degrees, but now I want to grill it off. So just a couple of quick changes and we're going to be cooking 375 to 400 degrees to really caramelize that glaze. Here's what we're looking at doing. I got to pull that heat shield out because I want direct flame on my pork belly. So I'm going to open my full size width door right here, grab that heat shield with my tongs, pull it out, slide it right underneath the grill. Now I have direct coals. Now the coals are down in the smoke position, so all I got to do is crank it up into a bake position so I can get a real nice close contact to the fire. Not so hot that it's going to sear and burn my pork belly, but just hot enough that it's going to really caramelize it. And now I'm up in the bake position. So I've got my pork belly here. It's kind of sitting in this pool of marinade. I'm going to throw it all on the grill. Now I can use all the marinade that's in the bottom of the pan to continue to baste it and glaze it. You can see all that fat caramelizing. If that fire gets too hot, just go ahead and crank your firebox down a little bit. Start flipping. You're seeing some great grill marks coming. And as it gets hot, just go ahead and crank it all the way back down. All right, here's where we're going to get a little chefy. So we're actually going to be putting this pork belly on top of some rice, but I want to have a fresh topping for it that's just going to add a punch of flavor because you got a lot of fat going on, you got some garlic, you got some heat, you got a little bit of blandness with the rice, so I really want a punch of flavor. So what I've done is I have matchstick chopped some apples right here and some carrots. I got some cilantro. And I got some liquids that we're going to be mixing all this stuff up with. So in these apples, I'm going to go ahead and top some of that apple with some carrots. I want to get that good and mixed up. So it's kind of a good distribution. So take some of this cilantro. You don't have to add cilantro If you're one of those people that thinks it tastes like soap, that's fine. I'm not, and I love cilantro. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of olive oil. Gonna add a touch of sesame seed oil. This stuff goes a long way, so you don't want too much. Gonna add a little rice vinegar, just for a bite. And then just a touch of lime. Again, not exact measurements. You're really just looking for a good balance of flavors. Mix all that up. Doesn't have to sit for long. It's always a good idea to try it, make sure it tastes good first. It's really good. Now it's time we get plating. Got some white rice. Go ahead and plate that up. We're gonna make this pork belly stand out on a bed of white rice with some beautiful pop of color on the top. You pick your favorite piece of pork belly. I like some with some of that char on it. And then last but not least, our beautiful pop of color. You can doctor this up even more with a little balsamic glaze or some drizzle or something if you want. You don't have to get too chefy with it. It works great just on its own. But the neat thing about this recipe is you got tons of fat and flavor coming from the pork belly that's been smoked, so you got the smoke flavor on it. It's got that garlic and that citrus flavor that we piled on. Then you have that soy sauce and that teriyaki and that honey adding some sweetness to that garlic and that citrus. Then you have some acidity coming from the apples and the carrots with the oils and the vinegars in it. So you really have a nice balance of fat and acid and flavor and color. It's an absolute beautiful dish. We're gonna go and give it a shot. That pork belly's cooked perfectly, so it breaks nice and clean on a fork. Very little tug to it. Get some of that slaw topping. So good, so refreshing. Normally you don't have a fatty dish like pork belly feel refreshing. Because of that slaw, because of the rice, is very refreshing. Actually, it feels almost light, which is very strange for pork belly, but it feels that way. Embrace that char, that Hasty Bake char flavor on there, so you get all the smoke of the pork belly, but then you get that nice black char on the outside where it just singed all the fat and made it just pop like crazy. That's the versatility of the Hasty Bake. In one shot, we smoked it, we seared it in the same grill, the same fire, the same amount of coals. We were able to get the whole meal done on one. Normally you need 2 or 3 different cookers to do something like that. Absolutely killer. This is going to become part of my regular routine, I guarantee it, because that is outstanding. We still got tons of pork belly left too, so the crew is going to love this one. Thanks for joining us this week, and every week, hit that subscribe button. Continue to like us. Continue to share this content out, guys. We love being part of the community. We want you to know how to use your Hasty Bake grills and fall in love with them for awesome, delicious, kind of chefy meals like this. We'll see you next time.